Hello, my friend. It's your buddy Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Welcome to PMP Journey. Today, we're going to take a look at a couple of questions because I know some folks are in the early stages of their PMP development. These easy questions will give you an idea of how to answer additional simple questions and how to build on that to answer more complicated questions. So let's take a look at this one right off the bat. It says, your project has been in trouble and a large cost change is being requested by the customer. The change board is reviewing this large change. Which of the following would you expect as an input to this process? Now, this is a very simple question, but in order to answer it right, you need to distinguish between an output from a process and an input to a process. You should also be able to distinguish between relationships, what is related to the process and what is not. So let's take a look. In this process, we see language change control. This is obviously perform integrated change control. So if you take a look at what we have on the screen, change control tools is a tool and technique. So we can use the process of elimination and cross that out because it is not an input, it's a tool and technique. The next one we can cross out is something not associated with this process, perform integrated change control, either as an input, tool, and technique or output. And it's work performance information. It has absolutely no relationship to this process. So we're going to cancel that. Taking a look, we've got two left. These two are in some way associated with the process. The very first one, approved change request, as the name implies, is a change request that has been approved as a result of this process, perform integrated change control. In other words, this is an output of perform integrated change control. So it is not an input. Because it's an output, we disqualify it as well. And that leaves one, work performance reports, which is the correct answer. Work performance reports is an input to perform integrated change control. Now, when you take a look at questions like this, always ask the question, why is it an input? Work performance reports is an input because as a result of these work performance reports, we could make a sensible conclusion in perform integrated change control as to whether to approve, reject, put on hold, or pending this change request that we got. Let's take a look at what exactly the PMBOK guide says in 4.6. And we're taking a look under the inputs to perform integrated change control on page 116. It reads, work performance reports of particular interest to the perform integrated change control process include resource availability, schedule, and cost data, earned value reports, and burn up or burn down charts. Now, it's not explained to the degree that I will explain it. However, using these items mentioned, resource availability, understanding resource availability could help you decide whether to approve or reject a change request. If you don't have the resources to carry out the change request, don't do it. Cost data. If your project is performing woefully in terms of cost, you may not be inclined to take on a change request. Now, if the change request will bring in additional revenues, that could be a consideration factor. Earned value reports also pertaining to cost. Burn up and burn down charts also pertaining to the overall performance of the team. And that is why work performance reports is an input. Let's go on to our second question. The next question here reads, you are the project manager on a high volume, high yield manufacturing project. Which of the following is the correct order of events on this project? Now, to answer this question correctly, you need to understand what happens first, what happens next. For this reason, I would advise that you Google PMBOK Guide Mainline and understand the sequence of events that cuts across the 49 processes right down the middle using integration as a basis. When you understand the main line, you'll be able to see when deliverables are created, when they're being reviewed, and when they are being approved at different stages. So, taking a look at this, we can use the process of elimination to disqualify some of these options. For the most part, there are four processes at play here. We have direct and manage project work, control quality, validate scope, and close project or phase. Now, right off the bat, you do know that close project or phase should be last. So, taking a look at this lineup, you want to cancel any option that does not put close project or phase last. A cursory overview helps us cancel option B, where close project or phase comes up as number 3 instead of number 4, the final one. So we can cancel that. Taking a look, we can also see that the sequence of events should be validate scope coming before close project or phase. Going a step further, we should also understand what happens in each one. So let's do that to eliminate some further options. Direct and manage project work is where the project work is being worked to create the deliverable. This is where you get deliverable as an output. Control quality is where you are checking the product internally. If this is the right sequence, you need to control quality first before you validate scope. In other words, you need to check the deliverable internally before it gets checked externally in validate scope. The last process, close project or phase, very straightforward. This is where you transition the accepted piece of work to the customer. In other words, we would say accepted deliverable is being transitioned to the customer. So, with that in mind, we can eliminate any process where control quality does not come before validate scope. So, let's take a look at the other options. Option D puts validate scope first. And that is incorrect because we should, first of all, direct and manage the project work before moving into control quality. So you can see control quality came before direct and manage project work in option D. That means it cannot be option D. Taking a look at option A and C, we have direct and manage project work first, and then it jumps straight into validate scope, where the customer accepts the deliverable instead of going to control quality first. So we're going to cancel option C. And the correct answer should be you first create the deliverable, that's direct and manage project work. First create the deliverable, then the deliverable gets checked in control quality, and then the customer validates the scope. They check the deliverable themselves and they accept or reject it. Hopefully, they will accept, and then we go into close project or phase. So the best answer here is A. Now, whenever you get a question on an exam, the best thing to do is to accept or choose an option. Don't go without accepting or don't go without choosing some option because you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right. Not going with any option invalidates the ability to get any mark. So for those of you taking the exam, be sure to choose an option before your time runs out on the exam. Okay? Make sure you answer all possible questions, all available questions, all 180 questions, you should answer them. Now, I want to clear up the image that we have in a number of our videos on WPD, WPI, WPR. There was some confusion in one of the students thinking that that image showed a sequence of events, and I want to clear that up. So let's go to it. In this image here, we can see direct and managed project work leading into a bunch of other processes. Now, I want to make it very clear. This image is not talking about the sequence of events going from here to here to here. No, this just happens to be an arrangement of convenience where the knowledge areas were followed in sequence to show you that work performance data goes into these processes. It has nothing to do with the sequence of how these processes actually occur. Instead, in the previous question, you need to understand what exactly is happening in each process. It is independent of this image. This image is simply showing you that direct and managed project work gives you work performance data. That work performance data goes into all of these processes, not in sequential order, right? All of those processes gives you work performance information that goes into monitor and control project work. From there, you get a work performance report. Again, this is not in sequential order. This is only listed out in order of knowledge areas. And then it goes to these four. All right. So whenever you are asked a question about sequence of processes, do not refer to interactions such as WPD, WPI, and WPR to make a conclusion. Instead, you should know what is happening in each process, and that will help you better answer the question. I hope this helps clarify. Just remember, a lot of these questions in the first stage of your PMP exam journey, they could be very easy, but there's a lot to be learned from them in the logic and rationale. I always like ending with a reminder that on your exam, you are likely to get questions that are more situational, questions of a situational nature that these days have been bordering quite a lot on agile and hybrid. So, in no way should you expect questions to be at this level of simplicity. Instead, you can expect questions to be a lot more challenging and to be, of course, like I said, of the agile variety. In closing, I am going to show you a few questions that you can expect in terms of difficulty. Take a look. Here is an example of a question from the Agile quizzes that we present to students. You can see this is straight up Agile, not predictive, just straight ahead Agile. Here's another question. In Scrum, what do we call the individual detailed pieces of work needed to convert a product backlog item into working software? You get the idea, okay? So I am trying to focus your attention on the type of question. And here is another question type. This is from the predictive variety. And for those of you familiar with PMI's infamous mock exam from way back when, no longer in circulation, this question type might be recalled by those of you that have experience with that. And you can see the nature of the question is, what should the project manager do next? See that? Here's another question type. And this is another one of those. What should the project manager do next questions? See that? So the questions we looked at in the very beginning are pretty simple and straightforward. You need to be able to tackle questions of that level before you tackle questions of a higher level. So I'm going to break down what I call the evolution of questions in anyone's PMP journey. We first of all have what I would call level one, and these are strictly definitions. Then we have level two, and level two, I would say, is more process order type questions. Then we have level three. Level three is a combination of both. Primarily definitions plus process order. And then we have level four. And I call this usability type questions. And this is, what should I use in order to solve the problem? Level five. This is situational, and we're talking about a variety of situations. So let's break out level five a little bit more to clarify what this means. Level five, when we say situational, you could have situational questions asking, what should the project manager do next? And you can have the question worded in a variety of ways. It could be, what should the PM do next? What should the PM do first? And in a lot of instances, these are very similar under most circumstances, as far as what you should do next is what you should do first. Sometimes it's just, what should the project manager do? And in a lot of circumstances, these are pretty much the same thing, but there are some exceptions. And based on your understanding and knowledge, you will know what the PM should do, whether it's next or whether it's first. And this could be a number of things. It could be what to do to resolve a problem or an issue. And that's why the answer that says escalate needs to be looked at really carefully before you choose it. Because a lot of times the answer that says escalate may not be the right one, okay? It could also be what to do to minimize or avoid risk. It could be what to do to resolve conflict. Now, to go a step further and talk about these problems, because this type of question is notorious on the exam. When we talk about issues, we're talking about issues relating to scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications. procurement. And how to engage or resolve stakeholder or integration issues. So when you take a look at your exam, my friends, you can expect questions to fall more into this final category, level 5. Level 1 questions, you could get some of these, not that many. You could get some of these, not that many. Definition and process order, you could very well get those. And also don't forget, we're not just talking about predictive, we're also talking about Scrum. When it comes to usability type questions, you would expect to get more usability type questions, and then less and less in the order that I have put them, but definitely a lot more of this. Okay. Some, less, and then in degrees of going down, less and less and less. Definition questions are often not that easy, if I may say. They're usually masked, and you would think it's a situational question, but it's actually a definition question, just in the way it sounds. Talking about the CAPM exam, if you are taking the CAPM exam, you can expect to have questions a lot more in this variety on the CAPM. And of course, we cannot preclude these combinations. However, on the CAPM exam, you would not expect to have situational questions. Even though they may sound situational, they are likely to be, at best, a level 4, but not a level 5 to the degree that the PMP is. Remember, we are talking about both agile, hybrid, and predictive in all of these categories. Even on your CAPM exam, you could get some agile questions. You could get questions that pick from what is in the PMBOK guide from an agile perspective. I hope this helps, and I hope this gives you some understanding. I hope this gives you some guidelines regarding what to expect on the exam. All the very best. Bye for now.